That's good. That's good. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Rama. Hare Krishna 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 Hare. Prabhupada-chaya, Prabhupada-chaya, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Gaur Premanande, Hari Haribo. Etwas Wasser. Nou, even goed. Ja. Is er nog echt veel los dit, hè? Om Jnanatimidandasya Kananchana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalang Pangam Langadekirim Yat Kripadamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this presentation on the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Books are the basis, and we have here a statement by Srila Prabhupada: all of my students should read our books very diligently, at least 1 or 2 hours daily, and try to understand the subject matter from varieties of angles. So Prabhupada encouraged his disciples and followers very much to read his books regularly. And at the moment, there's an international Śravaṇam week taking place. It's a global initiative all over ISKCON to encourage devotees to read more often. I mean, we all do. That's part of our practice, to read Srila Prabhupada's books. But I guess there is some room for improvement, or we can do it more often. And that's what we try to do. A part of this Śravaṇam week are also interviews with different senior devotees. And it's not here. On the webpage of the Ministry of Education, and also on YouTube, if you Google YouTube Hare Krishna TV, you find many different interviews with different leaders who speak about the importance. Now, I felt maybe a good opportunity to myself also speak about the topic on the Sunday program. And I gave a similar presentation already beginning of this year when I was in Mayapur in India. There was an ISKCON Leadership Sangha, an international gathering of leaders, and there we also spoke about the topic of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and I kind of adjusted the presentation a bit for today. But mainly what we will do, we will look at the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. We will hear why it is important to read, and then I hopefully also will be able to give you some good tips and advice how to increase your reading practice. That would be the goal of the presentation, and hopefully after that you will be feeling very inspired and encouraged to read every day in Prabhupada's books. We start with some statements. I mean, there's many statements, but some just to give you an idea. Now we are requiring our students to be very well familiar with all our literatures so that we may present our philosophy before even the most educated persons. That was Prabhupada's desire. Actually, Prabhupada in many places he said that just as Christians know the Bible, or just as a lawyer knows the law book, and they have to know it very well, so they can anytime they can just quote it. And so similarly, the devotees of the Krishna conscious movement, they should know the Shastra, the Vedic scriptures, especially Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. They should know them very well. And I personally, Prabhupada speaks here even before the most educated persons. I personally had an experience where I had an interfaith dialogue with a Sufi master. And the Sufi master, I think today he is 93 years old. When I had the interaction, it was a few years back, but still was very senior. I mean, still very, very senior, very learned. And I had to interact with him, have a philosophical discussion. And he was very pleased and quite impressed. And so what is my qualification to talk to such a scholar? I mean, there's no qualification. The only qualification that I have read Prabhupada's books and I repeat Prabhupada's teaching. That's the amazing thing. By actually absorbing ourselves in Prabhupada's teaching, we are able to speak even to very educated persons, as Prabhupada here suggests. Then I'm requesting all of my students to read my books very seriously every day without fail. So we got a lot of instruction like chanting the holy name and attending morning programs and all of that. But Prabhupada stressed the fact that it's important to read on a daily basis, regularly. As we heard in the other quote, 1 hour, 2 hours a day, it's a lot. And the GBC is the highest leadership in our institution. GBC members means they will see that in every temple these books are very throughoutly being read and discussed and understood and applied in practical life. So of course reading books, understanding books and applying books is very important. So we should also try to understand how can I apply these books? How can I live according to the teachings? And here we see Prabhupada being very pleased seeing a new edition of his new copy of the book. And actually Srila Prabhupada invested so much time. As we know, he received the instruction by his own spiritual master to present Krishna consciousness in the English language to the Western world. And here we see him translating his books the way he did. He had a microphone here and just actually reading the original Sanskrit text. Also, he was reading a lot of commentaries by previous acharyas and saintly personalities, and then he would just speak in a microphone and give his own commentary. That's how these books were produced. That's quite amazing, because usually you write and you rethink and you rewrite, and it's a whole process. But Prabhupada just took a microphone and just spoke, and that's how the books are printed. And as we know, Prabhupada did it, for many years, many hours every day, basically in the night, when all of the disciples and people in general go to sleep. Prabhupada would, in the middle of the night, get up and for hours and hours translate. Yeah. So Prabhupada was so enthusiastic and so determined to write these books. And as we heard in a presentation this morning also by Vaisheshika Prabhu, he says that, we cannot write so many books. Prabhupada translated, I think, over 60 books from Sanskrit into English. So we cannot write so many books, but we can at least try to read these books. We may not be able to write them, to write a similar vast, like so many books, but we could at least try to read the books that Prabhupada has given to us. And I find it's a very nice meditation that Prabhupada invested so much time and energy into, and Prabhupada himself said, I have written these books for you, for the devotees, so that you get spiritually nourished and understand Krishna consciousness better. And we understand books are actually only at the beginning of Kali Yuga, when it was seen by the sages that people will not be able to remember this knowledge, then books were written. Because originally, this is an oral reception, and the teacher gives the knowledge to the disciple, and the disciple learns it just by hearing. We see here Narada Muni gives his knowledge to Vyasa, and then Vyasadeva was the personality who then wrote these books and put down the knowledge into writing. But it's important to understand the importance of hearing. And of course, reading books is also a form of hearing, because if you read out loud, you hear yourself. And also the daily classes we have, we read from the scripture and then we discuss the scripture. So it's a form of Śravaṇam, Kirtanam, hearing and glorifying the Lord. And reading is part of that. But especially hearing is important. I have here a few statements from Shastra about the importance of hearing. This is Kunti Devi praying. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So it's a glorification of this whole process of hearing and chanting and remembering the pastimes of Krishna. Those who do that, actually, they certainly will attain Krishna. They certainly get liberation. And another text in the Bhagavatam says, simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So, by actually hearing Shastra, or by reading Shastra, as an effect, we will become free from Shoka, Moha, and Bhaya. Shoka, Moha, Bhaya. Shoka means lamentation, and Moha means illusion, and Bhaya means fear. I mean, that's kind of quite a nice benefit, no? Because usually the conditioned soul, we are all the time, we're looking into the past, and we are lamenting why this happened, why that happened, and then And instead of being in the present, we are in illusion, we are covered by so many things. And then we look into the future and we are in anxiety, what will happen. So, but just, giving oral reception, hearing this Shastra, reading, hearing, then we will become free from these anxieties. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport to this specific shloka, Bhagavatam 1, chapter 7, text 7, very nicely explains the importance of hearing and the importance of the ear. And Prabhupada says that one can protect himself from the hands of an enemy while awake. This is. We also have some martial art monks, Deen Dayal. I'm sure he can protect himself with his hands while awake. Okay, but if you sleep, how do you protect yourself if you sleep? So, but while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. It's the ear. All the other senses, they are kind of in a not functioning. While you sleep, you don't see, you don't taste, you don't feel. But the ear is there, and as soon as there is sound, you will wake up. So the ear is protecting. There are various senses of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. The importance of hearing is mentioned here in a connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from the material pangs. So Srila Prabhupada highlights that hearing is extremely important. And that's the whole idea. Vedic scriptures, this text, the holy books, they are actually meant, in these books we have, is recorded all the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of Krishna, and all this wisdom of Vedic culture is there in the books. And by reading these books, hearing about it, then our original Krishna consciousness can be reawakened. That's the whole idea. So the Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message. That is the only way to experience the transcendental subject matter. It's also said that actually Krishna is adokshaja, he's beyond sense perception. You cannot see Krishna, you cannot touch Krishna. It's very difficult to understand Krishna. But through the process of hearing, you can understand. We cannot see through the eyes, but we can see through the ears by receiving information. That's the idea. There is an analogy given also. As from wood, fire can be manifested. We have wood, but actually in the wood potential there is fire already there. So it's just if two bamboos, rub each other, then fire can come out. There was no fire before, but because it's there in the wood, it can come out. And or as butter can be churned out of milk, so similarly, so also the presence of the Lord as Paramatma can be felt by the presence of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects. So actually, Krishna consciousness is not something artificial that comes from outside, but we actually already have a relationship to Krishna. We have even love for Krishna. It's just dormant. It's asleep. But by the process of hearing and reading, then that original position is again awakened. And Prabhupada says, as fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace as spiritual master can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual message injected through the receptive ear. So that's called Shabda Brahman. It's called spiritual sound vibration. That someone is speaking, others are hearing, and then whatever realization the speaker has, he can give that realization to the listener, through the process of hearing. That's the spiritual science, how it works. It's already there. It's already there in the heart, but by hearing, it can be reawakened, and that spark, that fire, comes through the transcendental sound. It enters the ears, goes to the heart, and in the heart, the fire of devotion is, started. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only, and thus divine existence is gradually realized. The difference between animality and humanity lies in this process only. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot. No, we haven't experienced a dog entering in here to listen. Although here there's a very receptive dog, he's listening here. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master. Yeah, we read that. So that's the process. We need to hear or read, and by absorbing ourselves in that transcendental sound, we can make spiritual progress. So these are the importance of hearing. That's why this week is also called Śravaṇ week. Śravaṇ means hearing, but reading is also a form of hearing. And actually by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we can associate with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada once was asked by a journalist, a reporter, what will happen after you leave the planet? Who will be your successor? Who will continue the mission? And of course, Prabhupada has already started to organize himself with the GBC, the leadership. But his answer was different. He didn't reply on the same level, and that Prabhupada often did. Someone asking a question, and Prabhupada just using the opportunity to give some truth without really going into the question. So Prabhupada replied, I'll never die. I will live forever in my books. And of course, physically, Prabhupada left his body in 1977. But he remains with us. And for not only, but he's anyway a spiritual personality who is transcendentally present. Prabhupada is right here. But especially, Prabhupada still remains present in his books. Because, if you want to know about a person, then, if you read his books, in books you have Prabhupada invested so much, all his thoughts, all his ideas, it's all there in his books. So if we want to know him, if we want to associate with him, then we should read his books. And another aspect, and that's a wonderful way to associate with Prabhupada, who is so dear to Krishna and is a pure devotee. And also, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and especially the Bhaktivedanta purports, that means his explanations on the shlokas, we actually learn and understand what is Prabhupada's mood and mission. We have to understand, like in previously, these scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, they have been already there, not in English. Bhagavad Gita also in English, but Bhagavatam was given by Prabhupada in English. But previous acharyas, they have also written commentaries. And the idea is that because the original Sanskrit text sometimes may be very difficult to understand, so saintly personalities, they write their realizations so we can understand. But Prabhupada, what he did, he collected the information from all the previous acharyas, teachers, and then he took the essence and gave it to us. And he, of course, added his own realizations and also presented it in such a way that a person in a Western world can understand it. And that's a unique contribution of Srila Prabhupada, that he made like spiritual truth very easily available for the modern world. And especially in the purports also, sometimes Prabhupada speaks very personally. He speaks about his personal experiences. He mentions things which are dear to him. So by reading these purports, one can learn about Prabhupada. That's important. There is a statement in a purport also, one who represents someone else must fully know that person's mission. And it's part of the story of Ajamila. We don't go into the details, but this is a person dying, and he was very sinful, so the messenger of death, they come and take out his soul in the subtle body to punish him. But then the messenger of Vishnu, they come and stop the Yamadutas, saying, well, wait a minute, he has chanted the holy name of the Lord, that's why he shouldn't be punished. And then there is a discussion between the Dutas. Dutas means the messenger of death and the messenger of Vishnu, God. And they argue with each other. And then the Vishnu Dutas, they tell him, what kind of messenger are you? You think you understand religion and the laws of nature, but you don't even know that someone chants the name of Vishnu, he can't be punished. And then Prabhupada comments, if you are represent someone, you need to know that person very well. So, as a followers of Srila Prabhupada, as members of of ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement, we are representing Srila Prabhupada, and therefore we really need to know Prabhupada very well. We need to know him deeply. And how to do that? By reading his books. If you really absorb and reading his books, we will be able to understand Prabhupada very, very deeply. And also Prabhupada says that when we read the Bhagavad Gita as it is understood that we are receiving personal instruction of Krishna. No physical barrier is there in the case of spiritual affairs. Sometimes we may argue, well, Arjuna was so fortunate, Krishna was just sitting on his chariot right next there. But I can't hear Krishna, I don't know what Krishna wants from me. But Prabhupada says, well, actually if you read Bhagavad Gita, especially if you read every day, Bhagavad Gita, then you will see how Krishna talks to you personally. You will develop a personal relationship to Krishna because, you get the message of Krishna. And then Prabhupada goes on, is the instruction given in my books is supposed to be personal instruction, Prabhupada says. So that's also an amazing statement, that in the sense that when we read his books, we can take it as Prabhupada is talking to me, he's giving an instruction to me. So that's a way we can be in touch with Srila Prabhupada and in this way strengthen our spiritual life a lot. And that's the whole idea. Reading books, reading holy scriptures should help us to get nourished in our spiritual life. Like we need to take food every day to nourish our body, we need to nourish our soul, and we can do that by connecting ourselves with transcendental sound vibration, with Krishna in the form of his teachings. And Srila Prabhupada helps us by giving his translation and by making these books available. Reading books also means sharpening our intelligence. There is the story of the two, how you call them, the wholesaler, the wood cutter, or they're in a forest, cutting down trees, and then one is they're having competition who can cut more trees, and one is cutting all the time without stop, and the second person takes a break in between, leaves and comes again. But then at the end of the week, it turns out that the one who always took break actually cut much more trees. How was that? Well, in between he sharpened his saw, you say. So similarly, in our spiritual life, from time to time, we need to sharpen our intelligence. So, and that's the idea. Intelligence means discrimination. Intelligence is the function that we understand what is matter, what is spiritual, what is illusion, what is truth. So how to know? Well, if we read regularly in scriptures, this will help us to make clear decisions and have a sharp intelligence. So the process of reading is the way to sharpen. And so these are some, of course we could go on with many, many, many more reasons why reading is so important. I hope you got the point and feel inspired to read. Are you inspired to read? Yes. Okay, great. So then, but how to read and how to overcome the obstacles, that's the second part, which we will now look into it. There's many obstacles for reading. Do you know some obstacles for reading? Do you personally experience some obstacles? Yes. Time. That's the number one obstacle. I don't have time. I'm working the whole day, coming home, and should also chant Hare Krishna. And how can I read? No time. Okay. What other obstacles?
Violence.
Sorry?
Violence.
Violence?
Not violence. Silence. No silence.
Silence.
Silence, yeah.
Oh, noise. Yeah, yeah. There is no silence. There is too much noise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Because in order to absorb, you need a peaceful place, and difficult maybe to find. Yeah.
Not understanding what you read.
Not understanding what you read. Yeah, you find it difficult to digest what you read. Mm-hmm. Lack of motivation. Yes, you don't every evening hear such a presentation, and then after the presentation you may feel inspired, but 2 weeks later you have forgotten about it, and then distractions. Yeah, you just okay. I will read now, and then you look at your mobile phone, and there was a message coming. Oh my God! and then half an hour is gone. You ended up on Facebook, and you haven't read the page. Yeah, distractions. Yes. Yeah, I put some here. No time, no peace of mind, no taste. I prefer to watch videos. I don't like books. Some people don't have taste in reading. No inspiration, tiredness. Especially Hare Krishna devotees get up early in the morning, and then 4 o'clock in the morning, and then chanting and service, and then you take lunch, prasadam, big feast, and afterwards you want to read. Good luck. Tired. So there's many obstacles. So in order to overcome obstacles, we have to go new ways. Sometimes we have to just make different priorities. We have to say, okay, I really want to read, so I need to go new ways. So for this, we really need to understand the importance of reading. That's the first thing. And the more we understand the importance, the more we will feel motivated and actually will read. And as I said, I gave this presentation in Mayapur at the ILS, like in International Leadership Sangha, and the organizer they urged me, or they request me to give some personal example. So that's why it's there, not because I want to present myself, but they said you should speak from your own example. So as some of you know, I did a Bhakti Vaibhav course last in 2018 and 19. I spent total more than 10 months in Vrindavan. I mean, I went 4 times. I traveled 4 times to India and spent several months each time to study the scriptures. And it was a wonderful experience to just read and hear about the Srimad Bhagavatam at the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education, which is it's an institute which facilitates systematic study. That's one way to enhance your study or reading, that you take courses, that you systematically read. And of course it was not so easy for me. First of all, I'm serving as the temple president of this place, so I have a lot of responsibilities. I can't just go to India and study for months and forget about the temple. But I did. And some other devotees like Keshav Madhava took care and helped me, supporting. But it was a challenge. It was not so easy. And I couldn't complete the whole course always in the classroom. Sometimes I had to come back to Switzerland and do the course online, just partially. So here we see a picture on the right. You see me. This is an online live stream. I was here from Zurich, from my room. I was studying. And then even when I was in India, after 4 months being in India, I got typhoid fever. And I ended up in a hospital. And it took me several weeks to recover. Here I am in a hospital. So there's different obstacles maybe there if you want to read, if you want to dedicate your life to study and understanding. But if we have a clear vision and a desire, this is important to me, I want to do it, then it's possible, you can do it. So that's, I think it's the most important to really be clear why you want to read and have a clear motivation and enthusiasm to read. Okay, but how to find time? There's different ways to do that. Some tips: reading during the early morning hours. Like, okay, we have taken a vow to chant 16 rounds every day, and usually I chant in the morning, and I will always chant. But reading, sometimes I read, sometimes I don't read. But if I make it a vow, let me read every day, and then sometimes I may read in the morning, because then other things maybe I do later. But If I do it in the morning, then it's done. Reading every day at the same time, same place, that can be difficult, but if you can manage to get a regular time, place, that can be helpful. Or reading in between services. Whenever you get time, you have a book with you and always try to read. This is Satsvarup Das Goswami. He explains how I made a sign and hung it on a bookshelf above my desk. The sign said, "Whenever you get time, please read my books." That's a Prabhupada statement, so he put a sign. Whenever you have time, read my books. And it reminded me of my duty to read as much as possible every day. So we can do that. We can put a sign somewhere to remind us that we should read. Quite an impressive example is Hladini Devidasi. There is a book, this is the book, biography about her. She was a very amazing devotee, a saintly personality in our movement. And there, I think Malati tells about her. She had only 10 minutes on her schedule, but because she did it every day, she read all of Srila Prabhupada's books several times. And it's described that she did so much service every day, like a full altar service, dressing the deities and doing arti, and going to the kitchen, cooking for the deities. But what would she do? In the kitchen, she had a book between the spices, and while the dal was cooking, and she just look and read one page and then continue cooking. And then she had a book on the altar also. And when the Lord was taking prasadam, and after chanting the Chaitri, she would read a few lines. And in this way, she would read Prabhupada's books several times. So these are examples that show if you really have a desire to read, you will always find time. Actually, there's not such a thing that no time. Also, Vaisheshika Prabhu said, how many hours you have a day? 24 hours, right? And that's everywhere. Everyone has 24 hours. It's not that someone has less or more. So 24 hours we have, and then it's a question of making priority, whether we actually find time, 30 minutes, to read. So where there is a will, there is a way. Therefore, it's important to have a reading commitment. It's good to measure. If you set goals, then that helps. If you don't set goals, then how can you measure? And that's why also, like in chanting our daily meditation, mantra meditation, we count our rounds. Why do we do that? So that we can be sure that we're making progress, that we are steady. So the same thing we can do with reading. And one very wonderful way we also heard this morning is, this is an app, it's called Be a Sage, page by page. You can download that on your smartphone or iPhone. And it's a simple app. Here you have the books of Srila Prabhupada. Then you have here, you can put on the time. Okay, let's see. In 1 year, I want to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's my goal. Okay, that's the goal you set. And then, to complete reading Chaitanya Charitamrita in 1 year, please read here 19 pages per day. So the app tells you how many pages you need to read in order to complete the book in a certain time. So now, reading 19 pages, that's not so much. You can, and if you feel it's too much, well, and you can adjust here. Okay, I completed Chaitanya Charitamrita in 2 years, and it's only 8 pages. Everyone can read 8 pages. But after 2 years, you have completed the whole book. And you can also put it in shlokas, how many shlokas. But that's a very nice way to help you make clear goals, and then also and because it's on a smartphone, which you anyway always carry with you, it has a reminder. You can set a time. It will remind you, hey, it's time to read your 19 pages, and that's really helpful. So I would strongly recommend you to install this app, and then, whatever book you feel inspired to read, then decide how long you want to take time, and then follow the daily dose of reading. Another way that can help is you have a weekly sadhana chart. That's my personal sadhana chart. which I started this year. I must admit I'm not following it anymore, but it's helpful. I did it for many years, occasionally, again and again, but it helps. You can, here is reading Prabhupada's books 1 hour, and then you can, because every evening you have to write, oh, I didn't do it, I failed. At some point you feel bad, and then you make sure that you do it. So you check yourself. That's a way to do. Another way that can help, reading with timer. If you say, okay, I want to read every day half an hour, well, then take a timer, 30 minutes, start, and then you read. And then even if you cannot able to read it half an hour, then you can stop after 50 minutes. You read 50 minutes in the morning, you read 50 minutes in the evening, and voila, you have your half an hour reading. But then you're sure that you actually read half an hour because you stopped it. That's another way to do that. And a very powerful way is the following one is reading together. Study group, make you accountable. And nowadays many people, they do it online. They have Zoom meeting every Wednesday evening. We meet on Zoom and we read together for half an hour in Krishna book. And it can be done. It can be individually organized. Here at the temple we also offer study groups where during the week you read on your own, and then on Thursday evening you come together and then we discuss what we have read and go through get an overview of the books that we read. So that's also a way to absorb. Okay, how to absorb in study, how to go deeper. I mean, these were some tips how to actually get the reading done and make sure that you read. So now how to go deeper. Giving regular lectures is one way. You see me here in ISKCON Vrindavan, so I'm really praying, that I'm a little nervous there. So I'm praying that I will be able to say something. So if you have to give presentation, give lectures, then you really need to go deeper in order to be able to say something. And you may say, well, but I'm not giving classes regularly. Okay, but you can share with your friends, with your neighbors. You can just share, yesterday I read in Srimad Bhagavatam about the story of Dhruva Maharaj. He was so determined, it was amazing. Within 6 months he got the darshan of the Lord. And you can talk about this. Instead of talking about the latest news and coronavirus and this and that, conspiracy theories, why don't you speak about Bhagavatam, So, and that's also by sharing what we have read, then that actually helps us to go deeper and absorb. Another way, what I personally find very inspiring, is to make your own notes. You read and then you make notes. This is, I compile an index. I have certain topics. Okay, death. Whenever in a shloka or in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about death, then I make a note. Okay, preparing for death. When flying an airplane, everyone has to take care of his own plane. So these were all statements by Prabhupada or the scriptures which are in regard to death, and then I put a number here. Next time if someone asks me to give a class on death, well, I'm prepared. I have my notes. So that can also be an inspiration to read more and study, to make notes. You can do mind maps. That's a mind map of the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 2. I personally like to work with mind maps when I give presentations, classes. I usually have a mind map because you can look at it and then with one look you have an overview of the whole presentation. You don't have to go through many, many pages. Okay, what will be next? No, you have one page, you see everything. Here I start, here I end. So that's another way to enhance the study. Of course, nowadays there's many nice study guides. There's nice books that give summary on the scriptures. Burijan Prabhu's book on the Bhagavatam, this Bhagavad Subodhini, is a very nice. We use it as a textbook in our study. Gives you an overview of the chapters and also details about the commentaries of the Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, mainly Prabhupada. This is a new book by Suttapa Prabhu, also in a very nice, with a lot of infographics and pictures and very nicely giving a summary of the whole Bhagavatam in one book. So there's many ways that we can deepen our reading experience. Then we also speak about active reading, and Srila Prabhupada himself speak about it. Simply hearing is not all. One must realize the text with proper attention. Somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning one can assured see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of the Bhagavatam. Have you ever seen Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam? Open, So it's possible if one hears, reads with attention and tries to understand. So one way to do active reading is you ask questions. If you have certain questions, then it helps you to go deeper. Like, what is the main point of this verse and purport? You read something and then you ask yourself, what are the main points? Maybe I can make a note, summarize it. Are there any sentences that strike me with their specific relevance? Is there anything that I found, wow, this statement of Prabhupada is amazing? Or do I have a personal experience in connection to this point? Is it applying to my life? So having these questions helps us to reflect on what we read and go deeper. Also, does it apply to preaching? Can I use it to share Krishna consciousness? This is from the secular world in-depth study from a university. They say rap, not a rap in the sense of yo-yo man rap, but in a sense of read, ask, and put answers. That's a strategy that you read paragraph, then ask yourself some questions about what you have just read, and put the answer in your own words. So that's a formula that can also help to increase your study. And I personally found it very inspiring that even in our scriptures, I think in the Upanishad it's mentioned, that they give also a similar technique that one should absorb what we read. And there, reading is compared, swadhyaya, like studying scriptures, holy scripture, is compared to taking a meal. So we present today's meal is the Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto. There will be first, as an appetizer, there will be Daksha and Shiva. Then the middle meal will be Dhruva Maharaj, and towards the end we get Prithu. And as a dessert, as a sweet, we have Puranjan. So there's a whole menu, the menu of the 4th canto as our lunch. So how to understand? That sounds a bit abstract, right? So how to understand? So the process of feeding, putting something to your mouth, is like reading something. Then the process of chewing is like thinking. Then swallowing is like contemplating. And digesting is like realizing. That's the sequence. So Śravaṇam, reading the text carefully. Śravaṇam or hearing, reading or hearing the text. Then Mananam, thinking about, okay, what have I read? What is it exactly? The Nididhyasana means deeply contemplation. It's one thing that you think about, but actually deeply contemplation means you put it on your heart, you really, maybe for days, you try to understand it, you meditate about. And then the 4th is the most important, Vandanam, you pray. You actually ask the Lord for the blessings to actually apply what you have understood. That you want to live according to the scripture. So that's the spiritual approach to study, that you go through these stages, and in this way you absorb and go deeper. So then this presentation, as I mentioned, was given there in this leadership Sangha, and the topic was the future of ISKCON. How can we make sure that ISKCON will be strong in the future? And therefore, this question was, I had to think about a question in this regard, in reading, so we came up with this question. How would ISKCON be different if every member would read Srila Prabhupada's books daily for an hour? Because at the moment that's not the case, okay? Many devotees don't read so much. They have the books, but there's a dust on the Bhagavatam because they don't find time to read. But we need to change that. Every devotee should read daily There should be no dust on any books. So, but how would ISKCON change if actually everyone would do it? Everyone would read regularly and absorb. Any ideas? What do you think? What would be some of the effects? How would it change our consciousness and the movement in general? Yes.
When you read something, I mean anything, you feel the desire to talk about it because you think, oh wow, yes, I need to tell this person or that person.
Okay.
One do so, then the next one will read too, and then it's like a snowball.
Okay, yeah, and that's a very nice point because ISKCON is all about spreading and sharing Krishna consciousness. So, but you're saying a very good point that if people read, if devotees read more often and regularly, the natural inclination and desire to actually share the knowledge will be there. Yeah. And yeah, that's a very nice point. Thank you for sharing. Yes. So what else? What do you think? Oh, actually, time is almost up. Yes.
Based on what we heard also today, there will be an increase of faith and conviction in what we actually do.
Yes, right. That was the topic, what we heard from Gauri Gopika Mataji this afternoon. How actually faith means Shastriya Shraddha. It means faith in scriptures. And by reading actually through the scripture, through association, we develop more and more faith. Yeah. Time is a bit short, so we go through. So there will be lesser misconcept, there will be lesser fall downs, hopefully also. Fixed up devotees, everyone will be focused on Prabhupada, deeper understanding, spiritual decision making, servant leadership. These are some of the positive consequences. Because everyone is absorbed in the spiritual message, so things will be more clear, less confusion, less doubts, less arguments. And in Srila Prabhupada's own words, this is quite impressive, what Prabhupada says about the benefit of reading. Śravaṇam, Kirtanam, hearing, chanting, reading. Prabhupada gives the following statements. He says, you will be able to answer all the questions because you read all the time these books. If someone asks you something, you remember, I read this. We can meet anyone else without any fear. We become very confident. No power in all the three worlds will make you fall down. That's quite a powerful statement. You become very strong. Very easily you will make your advancement in Krishna consciousness. And, it becomes better, read and follow Krishna will help you. All your spiritual desire will be fulfilled. Haribol. Then no more accepting material body. Your path back to God will be assured. You are becoming immortal. That's a benefit. So just reading Srila Prabhupada's books, hearing, chanting, can give you all that benefit. So these were some of the points that we discussed. And whenever you find time, please read Srila Prabhupada's books. That's the request that we have. And hopefully you find this presentation inspiring and helpful. And thank you very much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. I'm sorry we don't have time.